This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff. I am back. It's been about a week absence. I was in lovely Hawaii with family. It was nice. Good vacation. But now I am back, and let's get right into it. We have a lot to talk about since I've been gone. We have Mike Trout's massive new contract that really would make Bryce Harper it should make Bryce Harper angry. But I digress. We have March Madness getting, mad. And we also have a legend in the NFL world retire. And we have a guy trying to get back into the NFL. We'll talk about him as well. I think you know who I'm talking about. And anything else that needs to be discussed, we will discuss. But first, let's talk about Mike Trout's new contract. I don't think it's been discussed yet on this show, so let's get into it. Mike Trout is the $430 million contract with the Angels. That is an extension. And what Bryce Harper was saying about recruiting Mike Trout to the Phillies and making that a kind of a super team basically there with them two together, basically that's all gone awry. And, gone awry. It's not happening. Mike Trout's there for life now. So they're both going to be separated by basically the length of the country, Pennsylvania and California, for the remainder of their careers. And overall, we're looking at a $330 million contract for one, of course, and we're looking at a $430 million contract for the other. So looking into that, first of all, Mike Trout couldn't deny that. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's one of those kind of offers you're like immediately saying yes. Is you're going to hesitate taking $430 million plus your sponsorships? He can get close to. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets $1 billion by the end of his career, like overall, not just based on sponsorships, including his contract with the Angels. I mean, and the money he has now. So it just seems like he's destined to be the first billionaire athlete. I mean, obviously not the first billionaire athlete, but active player that's a billionaire. You know, it just seems like that's what it's going to turn into. But also the fact, just $430 million. As soon as I saw my phone went off and I saw that, I'm sure all of you also had that same feeling whoa. They were really worried about him leaving for the Phillies. I think the management of the Los Angeles Angels were like, okay, we cannot afford to lose this guy when free agent market hits in 2020. And they just went all out for him, basically. And it comes to show that people are saying, for Kyler Murray, going into that, he missed out on millions and millions of dollars because they obviously play more in baseball than in football. Well, in hindsight, yes, they're kind of right on that. But also, was Kyler Murray going to make it to that point? Was Kyler Murray even going to make it out of the minors? A lot of people said no. A lot of people said he was average. He batted below 300 in college. So he wasn't the best baseball player, honestly. I think he's making the right decision by going to football. And honestly, it's more money quicker too, and it's more of along the lines of just, he's going to be starting in the pros right away instead of basically battling in the minors to get a spot which might not even happen, So it's just one of those things you're looking at it and going, yeah, in the long run, he did make the right choice. And also, I think, and everyone's like, is he losing his shot at a World Series, going back to Mike Trout? I don't know if he'll ever win a World Series, but it's one of those contracts you cannot say no to. It's at $430 million. How can you say no to that? I don't think he'll ever, maybe he'll get an opportunity to get that kind of money in the offseason by other teams, but why take that chance of injury? Why take that chance of poor play going into your free agent year and get the money now, Get the money while you're hot. And I think overall that's the right move to do, because how many times have we seen a guy all right, I'm going to wait till free agency and get a huge contract and I'm going to be the highest paid player, and then injury or poor play happens, and that's not to be. So it's better to go on your high now than later, because of the fact that, it's unpredictable what the future holds for Mike Trout. He could have the rough couple of years, or rough season heading into his free agent year, and then he's not getting those big offers as he did, or he tore his ACL. I'm knock on wood, of course. You don't want that to happen to him, but those kind of injuries have happened in the most bizarre circumstances, so it's not crazy to think that that's impossible. Obviously, we don't wish that on him, of course, but you always got to look at those horrible possibilities, and that's why you got to take that money now for Mike Trout. So he made the right move, in my opinion. I think in a lot of people's minds he did as well. Factor, if he doesn't win a World Series or not, he's still going to he could buy a gold mansion with gold everything, basically, with what he's got, what he's going to get by the end of his career. So with that being said, let's move on to, I will say let's move on to March Madness, because, oh my goodness, we've had some exciting, we've had one or two exciting games, and the rest have been almost exciting. What I mean by that is Virginia almost lost again to number 16. At halftime, they were losing, if I'm not mistaken. They were losing to number 16, Gardner-Webb. And, Gardner-Webb. The ending score was 71-56. Virginia did win the game, but at halftime, it was 36-30. Gardner-Webb was winning. So it wasn't like, this was a destruction of a team. It was just the second half resurgence by Virginia to really win this game. But could you imagine if they did lose to Gardner-Webb, and they were not only the first time ever did a 1 seed lose to a 16 seed last year when Virginia lost to Baltimore County, or what is it, University of Maryland, Baltimore County is its full title, but then lost again to the number 16 seed back-to-back years. I don't think they'll ever happen, to be completely honest, to one team at least. And if that did happen, that head coach is fired. I don't think there's any question. There will be no head coach with that team going into the off in the next season, and they'll be looking for new head coaches in the offseason, obviously, because you can't have. Obviously, he's had success. There's no doubt about it. But if you had two straight losses, this is all hypothetical, of course. But if you did have two straight losses to a number 16 seed, first of all, first time it's never happened before. And if he did it twice, that's just unprecedented. So I think that would cost him his job, obviously. But he held on to dismantle the number 16 seed like they're supposed to. And now they go on to play Oklahoma, who dismantled Ole Miss in just a complete blowout. Kind of a shocking blowout, to be completely honest, because they were the number 9 seed Oklahoma against number 8 seed Ole Miss, 95-72. And I think that's the highest score so far for one team is 95 in this tournament. Of course, 20-minute halves, you can only do so much. So, with that being said, though, who do I see continuing on? I would say a prediction, but as everyone else's brackets are, except for I think one bracket, it's all gonna be wrong, all things considered. But there is one game we do need to discuss, and it was yesterday on Sunday. We had the game of the tournament so far: UCF and Duke. As you all know, it was basically a matchup between a 7'6" man, a gigantic man who dwarfs everybody. If you saw he was interviewed by that one reporter who was, I think, 5'2", and it was just astronomical. And it was Fall versus Williamson, basically. And what I say about Fall is I wouldn't take him in the first round because, he only played 25 minutes, granted, but only 6 rebounds. He did have a good matchup against Zion. He kind of did stuff him a couple of times, but Zion had a double-double, 32 and 11. Just shows how good he really is. And, Duke almost lost this game. At the end of the game, they had a missed layup and then a missed putback, UCF did, to lose the game at regulation. And honestly, if I'm Coach K in that situation, I'm a little angry. I'm angry because, first of all, that layup, fine. You can miss that shot, or you can let them take that. You had your arms up, you're playing defense, you don't want to commit a foul, you can let them take that. It was a high percentage shot. I would say it's like a 60% shot if I had to make an estimate. And then you're looking also at that. Well, okay. So he barely missed that one shot. Then it was the second shot, the putback, that really got me. Because, come on now, there were a lot of Duke players standing around the basket or standing outside the rebounding area, outside the key, not looking to get a rebounds or anything of that nature, and really it's just frustrating to see that kind of lack of effort when the game's on the line. And they got lucky. I honestly think they got kind of lucky due to that lack of effort. And, well, I think hopefully they can learn from this and they can move on from this. But regardless, I think it's going on more along lines of, you're going to learn from this and move on. You got to. You can't let that happen again because someone else gets that opportunity. They might not barely miss it by inches, It's just you got to look at it like that. Anyways, that was probably my favorite game to watch so far. The tournament, I think that's everyone else's favorite of the tournament so far. And, I'm actually liking the tournament. Not a lot of Cinderella stories at the moment. I mean, I thought UC Irvine could have a Cinderella story, but they lost to Oregon yesterday. Virginia beat Oklahoma. Like I said, after they moved on and they were going to face Oklahoma, and they beat Oklahoma yesterday. Liberty lost to Virginia Tech. UCF lost. Buffalo lost. Number 9, Washington lost to UNC. And, gosh, is there any top, double digit? I mean, let's look. Let's see. In the Sweet 16, the lowest seed I see is number 12, Oregon. So I guess that's the Cinderella story to look at in theory. But, I mean, kind of disappointing. You always love to see, a number 14, number 13 team get to a long distance point. But Oregon's always been a solid team. Obviously, they had a frustrated season not a great season this year. But overall, it's one of those years you're looking at. Maybe, just maybe, there can be a miracle run, and Oregon could be that team, I guess. But they are playing number 1 Virginia. That's a tall glass to order. They're 7.5-point underdogs. But then you look at the rest of the matchups like Texas Tech, Michigan, Purdue, Tennessee, Gonzaga, Florida State, LSU, Michigan State, Auburn, UNC. I'm looking forward to that game. Virginia Tech, Duke, and Houston and Kentucky. So it's not like, obviously there are some of those familiar faces like Duke and North Carolina and Gonzaga, Michigan, who was in the national championship last year. Obviously, the defending champs are no longer in it. Villanova is defeated. But they had a pretty good run. Well, not run in particular, but regardless, they won national titles. I mean, that's what matters most. They won the tournament multiple occasions. So that's all you can ask for. And so, looking at these, the Sweet 16 matchups, I'm just going to do predictions right here, right now. For Thursday's games, Gonzaga versus Florida State. You know, after that loss to St. Mary's, Gonzaga has this newfound life in them almost. It's really incredible to see. So, honestly, I got to go Gonzaga. I know that's kind of the obvious statement, but just how they bounced back against that St. Mary's loss in the conference tournament has really impressed me, and the resiliency of this team coming back from a loss like that. So, yeah, I got to go with Gonzaga on this one because their momentum is skyrocketing right now. And then you're looking at Purdue and Tennessee. This is the game to watch, in my opinion, for the Sweet 16 tournament. I think these are the most evenly matched teams. There's a 1-point favored Tennessee, for crying out loud. And for that, it's hard to choose between Purdue and Tennessee. Both of them are playing extremely well, but there's one crucial point that needs to be set out, and that is a certain Purdue player who had 42 points, and that's Edwards, the guard for Purdue. And I think he's going to be the key factor in this game. So give me Purdue over Tennessee. I like Tennessee. I like their fast pace. I like their how they play. Don't get me wrong, they were number one in the nation for a reason at one point. But overall, give me Purdue taking this one. Texas Tech and Michigan. Give me Michigan. I think they're on a path to redemption, so give me Michigan on that one. Texas Tech is a good opponent for them. Don't get me wrong, but I do see Michigan taking it. Give me Virginia over Oregon. Like I said, that's too much of a glass order for Oregon, but I can see Virginia choking because they did it last year. So don't be surprised if Oregon makes an upset, but I have Virginia taking it. LSU and Michigan State. How the way LSU's been playing in their miracle buzzer beater layup with like 1 second left, I think it was, to win, to move on. Give me LSU over Michigan State. Michigan State just doesn't seem to really seal the deal anymore. Like, they're a good, great team, no doubt about it. I just don't see them as a finishing team almost, if that makes sense. So give me LSU definitely for that. Auburn and UNC. I mean, no offense, Auburn, but I don't think you're a match for North Carolina. Duke and Virginia Tech. Zion's going to take over like he's done this whole season. He's the number one pick for a reason, so give me Duke over Virginia Tech. And then Houston and Kentucky. That's going to be a tough one for Kentucky. So, but give me Kentucky once again. It's going to be a very familiar Elite Eight, I think, for sure, being that North Carolina, Duke, and Kentucky are all going to be in it. And probably Gonzaga, too. So, with that being said, we should take a short break here. We're done with the March Madness stuff for now. When we come back, we'll talk about the NBA because we got to talk about the Lakers because we have history-making news based on them. Well, you already know the news based on their record in the NBA standings, but based on LeBron and them not making the playoffs, there's a lot to go on and how they're going to bounce back from this. So we'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just finished talking about March Madness as well as Mike Trout's massive contract. Now let's move on to the NBA, as the Los Angeles Lakers, due to a loss to D'Angelo Russell-led Nets team, ironically enough, and took them out of the playoffs. LeBron is not making the playoffs for the first time since 2006. Wow, have you seen the memes? It's pretty absurd what was going on at the time of 2006. Excuse me, and it's like I'll just look it up again. Okay, what was happening in 2006? So 2006. Let's see what was happening. I'm looking this up as we speak. The number one movie was Sin City with what was his name? Bruce Willis. Does anyone else remember that movie? It was like that black and white, super violent movie. I'm pretty sure yeah, that's what it was. And there was like a yellow guy. I'm not gonna explain because it was a rated R and it was very, it was pretty inappropriate, all things considered. But it was, I think it was an okay movie. It was the number one movie in America at the time. Or I think the world? Something like that. It was something more along the lines of just like, it was like, I think it's so hard to say what was the number one movie because so many things was like, every movie says it's the number one movie in the world. So I'm like really hesitant to say it. Okay. There was also the iPod came out. The original bulky, huge iPod that came out. That was also what was happening at the time. Candy Shop by 50 Cent was the number one song. Yes, it was. Drake hadn't released a song yet. The Star Wars prequels weren't even complete. Star Wars Episode 3 was not out yet. George W. Bush was the president of the United States. And that's absurd to me. And, of course, that was Dwayne Wade winning his first title as well. Shaquille O'Neal was his partner in crime, if you will. It's just absurd. I'm sorry. It's absurd to think that the way the streak of him in the finals ended is him not losing in the conference finals or not losing in the playoffs, but not making the playoffs entirely. And with that being said, does this hurt LeBron's legacy? That's the ultimate question. Does this hurt the legacy of LeBron James? Everyone's debating, Michael Jordan never missed the playoffs like at this point of his career. Well, it's not entirely true. It isn't entirely true. Remember when he returned to the NBA in 2002 or 2003 with the Washington Wizards, he did not make the playoffs with that team. Of course, he was at his super old age at the time. And, I'm just trying to think of other things that it could have been the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. Of course, the Wizards were a bad team. He was old. He also drafted Kwame Brown, number one overall pick. Does no one else remember these things? Whatever. And with that being said, I don't think this affects LeBron's legacy at all if, he makes the playoffs in the next coming years. In the next 3 years of his contract with the Los Angeles Lakers, if he makes the playoffs all those 3 years, then this will just be a minor speed bump in the career of LeBron James. If he misses back-to-back years, if they don't do well in free agency, if they end up where they are now again in the next year, then I honestly think it would affect how his legacy will end. Will he be considered a top 5 of all time still? Absolutely. But I don't think you can put him at number 1, or a lot of other people won't put him at number 1 anymore because of the fact that he will go back-to-back years at the end of his career missing the playoffs, if that does happen. So I think a lot is right on the line for this upcoming season. And See, this is where it gets tricky because I think LeBron's a top 5 player of all time. I don't really have a particular order for who's on my list. I just know Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, and the fifth is actually kind of difficult to pick, to be honest, because I have like Kobe Bryant to think about. I have Magic Johnson to consider, Larry Bird, honestly, but regardless, LeBron will still be in my top 5. And with how this is all working, with this is how it's all going down. With this season being this season is obviously a failure for LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers because they didn't go all out to get him. Well, they didn't really go out. They paid him a max deal the best they could. And, well, I mean, yeah, they paid him the max deal, and I think he was good to go there regardless, too. Because, like, it's LA. I mean, was there any other competition? I mean, we already knew he was going to be gone from, well, we didn't know exactly he was going to be gone from Cleveland, but how it was going with the management there, and it didn't seem like he was a fit there anymore, and how the owner was kind of being a little resilient, or maybe defiant against LeBron James because this is my team, kind of a power move to get rid of Kyrie and all that stuff. That was kind of the beginning of the end there. So, I mean, there was obviously the 76ers, but I just didn't see that actually happening unless he was trying to win. But I think it's more along the lines of, like, what's the best destination? What's the best area for a LeBron James? And honestly, that's LA. Like, he went to Miami. Like, yes, it was with Dwayne Wade and his friend Chris Bosh and all that, and all those guys. But also, it was Miami. It was a hot destination, celebrity-wise and fame-wise and all that kind of stuff. So, obviously, it seemed like it was going to be an easier place to go when you're looking at LA than anywhere else he was looking at. What was it? It was like the 76ers. It was the Knicks. Obviously, New York might have been a destination, but it obviously looked like LA was the premier destination for him. So that's not that big of a deal. Honestly, in my mind, that was a surprise. It wasn't like they tried very hard to get him, is what I'm saying. That's basically what I'm trying to say, is like the LA Lakers didn't really need to try hard to get him, is basically my point. So they didn't risk much to get. They didn't say, "Oh, we're risking it all just to get LeBron." They risked it all to try to get Anthony Davis though for LeBron, but obviously that did not work out. Which they might be breaking all that to go after him again this offseason. But of course, then you have the Celtics in the running and the Knicks in the running for that as well. There's going to be a lot of different opportunities for trades besides the Lakers. So, yeah, that's definitely something to think about when you're coming to Anthony Davis in this offseason. So, but basically, I'm getting off topic. What I'm saying here is LeBron needs to make the playoffs next season. He cannot go back-to-back with losing seasons and no playoffs. He can't do it. His first and also what really puts a factor on it is he's in the East. He's been in the East, but this is the first time he's ever been in the West. He's always been in the Eastern Conference. And with that, he's dominated the Eastern Conference. He's been the king of the East for decades now, for over a decade now. And with that being said, I have to say, on the terms of like him going to the West for the first time, if he doesn't make the playoffs the second time, this is just a big fat if, this puts a damper on his legacy as in like, oh, was he just in a weaker conference and took advantage of the opportunities? Is that why? Was it because he wasn't facing the Warriors more often in the regular season? Was he had an easier regular season schedule because he's in the East? Like, all those questions have been going through the minds of fans for a long time. But it's not more apparent than right now because of the fact that he's now in the West and has now made the playoffs for the first time since 2006. So definitely something that's going to be looked at in his career if he does not make the playoffs this year, if he fails to make the playoffs for the second time in his second attempt in the Western Conference. But that's just how I see things. You can obviously disagree with that, but honestly, I think his legacy is is at risk of being, I don't want to say tainted, but questioned if he doesn't make the playoffs the next season. That's my personal opinion when it comes down to that. But like I said, that's my opinion. You can totally disagree, but I think that's what it's coming down to for next season. But we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about a great NFL legend tight end who called it a career. But is it really the end of his career? We'll get right on that when we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Let's finish this thing up. We talked about LeBron and his legacy and the Lakers not make the playoffs. We've talked about March Madness. We've talked about Mike Trout's enormous contract that I can't comprehend because my brain just can't comprehend 400. Can you imagine looking at $430 million? That's a lot of money. I just want to see it all in one room, like $20 bills. Let's do it. Well, obviously we can't do it, but I am just curious to see what it looks like in a room when it's just $20 bills. It must be just enormous, right? It must just be like insane stacks. It's like Scrooge McDuck jumping into that pile of coins in the cartoon. It's probably going to be like that. Anyways, moving on from that, let's talk about an announcement that happened this weekend as Rob Gronkowski has announced his retirement from the NFL. And I think a lot of people saw this coming. I mean, the continuous injuries throughout his career, last 5-6 years, have been a problem. But in the playoffs, he's been spectacular. He's been spectacular his whole career. And despite those injuries, I mean, he was like a robot the last couple of seasons with a huge brace on his arm and all the braces on his legs and all that kind of thing. It just looked like he was being made out of metal rather than a human flesh at the point of his career. And winning 3 Super Bowls, 51, 53, and 53? Yeah, 53. And 49 while he was playing them. And so with that being said, this is obviously the end of a legendary career. One of the greatest tight ends of all time. I don't think there's any doubt about it. One of the biggest characters in the NFL in recent memory. I don't think there's any denial on that either. So it's interesting to say the least based on the longevity of Gronk's career. You could consider it kind of short, to be honest. I mean, how old is he? You know what I mean? It's like he's only been in the league. He's only 29, and he's retiring. But obviously, injuries are a reason for that. And he does, like, when you're looking at other tight ends in the league, like Antonio Gates and Well, I mean, just look at Antonio Gates. Perfect example. Well, probably the oldest guy in the league, arguably. Oldest positional player in the league. Because I wouldn't count like kickers in like as a positional player, of course not. Like, let's say Antonio Gates is 38, and then you're looking at Tom Brady who's 41 and all that other things. And with that being said, him ending his career 10 years, like Antonio Gates is 9 years his elder to Gronkowski. And Gronkowski's ending his career. Obviously, he has his Super Bowls and he has the stats and all this other things. So it's not like he's ending his career too soon. He's got the resume for a Hall of Fame career. But I think the important factor is it's his health. That's the problem. He's injured too much. He's injured quite frequently. And it's also been just a huge factor in how people look at him. Because when's he played like a full season? Like, I think that's an important question because of the fact that, it's an understandable situation why he's retiring. And everyone kind of is like, oh, no, you have so much left to prove. He doesn't really need to prove much anymore. He's already done so much with such little time in his career. Like, when was he drafted? Like, he was drafted in, 2009, 2008? 2010. He was drafted in 2010. He's only played for 8 years. Sounds like a long time, but it's really, really not. And let's look at his career stats, shall we? 3 Super Bowls, obviously. The last time he started a full 16 games, all 16, was his second year in the league in 2011. And that was his career year of 90 receptions, 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure that was a all-career high. It was all his career highs at the time. And, here's his overall stats. He's had 521 receptions in his career. 7,860 yards receiving, 79 touchdowns, which I'm pretty sure is second all time. He's had the most receptions by a tight end in Super Bowl history with 23. Most receiving yards by a tight end in Super Bowl history, 297. Only tight end to lead the league in receiving touchdowns, and that was his 2011 year when he had 17 touchdowns. Only tight end with 1,000-plus career postseason receiving yards. Most career postseason receiving yards by a tight end, 1,163. Most touchdown receptions by a tight end in a season, obviously, 17. Most touchdowns by a tight end in a season, overall, he had 18, because I believe he had one rushing touchdown, or I forget what all the touchdown he had. He had one rushing touchdown that year. So overall, he had 18 touchdowns. And then you're looking at only tight end to have 3 seasons with 10-plus touchdowns and 1,000-plus receiving yards, 2011, 2014, and 2015. Most seasons of 1,000-plus yards receiving by a tight end. He's tied with 4, with Tony Gonzalez and Jason Witten, which is pretty good company. And then consecutive seasons with 10-plus touchdowns, it was 3 straight, 2010 to 2012. Youngest player, 3 touchdown receptions in a game, 21 years old, 184 days in 2010 versus the Steelers. Youngest player with 3 touchdown receivers in a game, playoff game, at 22 against the Broncos. So he has the records. He has the stats. He has the rings. What else does he need to do? What else does he need to prove? I don't think he needs to prove anything. I think he's done I think he's done enough in the NFL to get himself in Canton. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And overall, it just seems that he ends his career and he just wants to be healthy. Because, you keep playing how he's playing as a bruiser tight end and continuing to injure yourself, he's going to be he could be walking with a limp the rest of his life if he keeps continuing, It's like, you got to think about your health, got to think about, what do you need to continue? Do you need to continue football? Have you done what you wanted to in football? He obviously has done everything you need to do in football to be a Hall of Famer. He's got his Super Bowl rings. He's got his touchdown records. He's got all this other things. And when you're looking at overall, it's like, oh, he needs money. Well, he's got plenty of that. It's it's been told that he hasn't touched his Patreon money. He's only touched sponsorship money because he has so many sponsorships. And he's going to continue to get that, and that's continuing going to happen. So he has the money as well. So what else does he need to do? Like, you don't need to have a long career to be a legend. Look at Barry Sanders. He was, I think he even admitted, I'm not 100% on this, but so many people have said he had so much still left in the tank and could have totally broken the rushing record at that time. The all-time rushing record. I believe it was Walter Payton's rushing record. That was before Emmitt Smith broke it. So with that being said, you can end your career. He can end it right now. He's done everything he could. He's 29. He lived the rest of his life without doing nothing, and he still has plenty of millions and millions of dollars to live out his life. So I say it's all fair to him. And as a fellow Arizona alum, I say, wait, perfect time to hang it up. I don't think and then his agent came out saying he can possibly return this year in 2019. It's still a possibility, which, like I said, is absolutely unnecessary. I don't think he needs to. I don't think there's any reason to. So that's just my take on it. But, moving on from that to a player that actually needs to be in the NFL. Johnny Manziel made his AAF All-American Alliance of American Football debut this weekend with the Memphis Express. And he was actually mic'd up too, which is actually pretty entertaining. And with that being said, he is with the Memphis Express, and they did win. And they are a team that wins games now. And they won a game in overtime in a comeback win in Manziel's first start. And they beat Birmingham in overtime. A very good, talented Birmingham, a 4-2 Birmingham at the time. And Manziel, they won the game in overtime, like I said. And Manziel, I believe, threw the game-winning touchdown pass, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if this means he's going to go in the NFL very soon. I don't know what the outcome is going to be in the long run for his career. But I will say this. I will say that when it comes down to it, Manziel will get another shot in the NFL. Maybe not because of his legacy, or not. Legacy is a strong term. Maybe because of his drawing power, his interest he brings to himself and to others, not even a fan of football. He brings that interest. He brings that curiosity into the league. And how long will it be until he signs with the NFL team? That's to be determined. But I do think it's going to be one of these things where he's going to have these consistently solid games in the AAF, the Alliance of American Football. And I do believe he will get a shot in the NFL. Whether it's a team looking to win now or rebuild or see what he could do, or even just as a backup, which is probably going to be the case. So overall, let's look at the facts that he's probably going to get the opportunity. He's probably going to get that opportunity. He's a lot like Kaepernick in that controversy standpoint, but he's not affecting the NFL as Kaepernick is with his money, and he got under $10 million in that settlement, which seems unbelievably low, in my opinion. I thought it was going to be up to like $30 million they're going to give him, but under 10, that's chump change for those owners. They're like, okay, let me just get that out of my pocket right now. Here's $8 million in my pocket that was already in there. It just seems like it was easy for them. And it's just funny to look at it and going like, wow, really? Under 10 million. It just seems like you could have gotten so much more. I guess we'll see how maybe Kaepernick's trying to get back to the NFL. Maybe he's trying to get on the good side. Unknown at this time. But regardless, like I said, Johnny Manziel's debut in the AAF turns out to be a successful one as they win. So, with that being said, I think that should do it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I'm Jeff Malinoff, and tomorrow there will be we can't really talk about March Madness until Thursday, of course, but obviously the NFL offseason is unpredictable, and we'll see anything else that's happened. And as always, I'm Jeff Malinoff, and I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.